Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session entitled Internet Consolidation is Here. What are we going to do about it? And we are very glad to have the Regional Policy Manager of Internet Society Asia Pacific, Noel de Guzman, to come here to be our moderator today. So let's welcome her.
Thank you very much, Chloe. So I am Noel. And I would like to thank everyone, first of all, for coming to the session. I hope that you will find it interesting and informative. And I'm sure with the contributors that we have today, Ko has already destroyed his webcam cover. I have to give him another one. So it's very delicate. Yes, I'm sure we will have a very informative session. So I'm Noel, and I work with the Internet Society. So we are a global not-for-profit organization, and we basically work in the areas of open standards development. We also promote open standards. We also do policy advocacy for the open internet. And we also help people and communities get connected to the internet, especially if they're living in areas that are not connected to the internet yet, but would like to get connected or need to be connected. So we have been doing studies and research on consolidation for more than a year now. And whenever I talk to people about it, like people who I know, my mother, she always gives me like a blank stare. So, like, what is that? What is that? So I guess for the purposes of the discussion today, it might be useful to have like a baseline understanding of... Oh, sorry. A baseline understanding, like a common understanding of what we mean by when we say consolidation. So when we say consolidation, we usually refer to like market concentration. This means that there are a small number of players that are dominating one area of the internet. An example of this is Facebook. So Facebook owns 4 of the top 6 social media platforms in the world. Another example is Google. 90% of internet users actually use Google as their search engine. Other manifestations of this could include vertical and horizontal integration. So I don't know how many is involved in the startup space here. Is anyone involved in startups? So they say, maybe you've heard this before, but they say that now, if you're a startup, if you're an innovator, the objective is not to become Facebook, the next Facebook or the next Google. The objective is to be bought by Google or by Facebook. So we have seen this happen in Instagram, WhatsApp, Lazada, which was recently bought by Alibaba. And aside from buying other companies, these big technological companies are also expanding in other areas that were beyond their core competency. So Amazon. We know Amazon as the Amazon website, where we can buy things and we can sell things if we want. But Amazon is also now a very, very big player in cloud provision through Amazon Web Services. So we've seen these companies become, in a span of a decade, or less than a decade, become some of the most valuable companies in the world. They're so valuable that they are worth more than the GDP of some of the developing countries across Asia. You know? Okay, so where do we see this happening? So far, we've talked about the application layer. So this is the layer that we all know. We all use Google. This is GAFA. They call the Big 5 or the Big 4. Google, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba. So this is where it's most visible, because this is the layer that we are exposed to every day. But it's also happening in other layers, and one of them is access provision. So when we say access provision, these are the companies that supply us or give us the services that allow us to access the internet. For Taiwan, this can include Chunghwa Telecom. Maybe I should I should whisper that. So in some developed markets, in some developed countries, access provision is concentrating on some 3 or 4 dominant players. It's also happening in service infrastructure. So when we say infrastructure, service infrastructure, we usually refer to the businesses that let network participants connect with each other. So they interconnect networks. This can include the providers that host and distribute content. You have your cloud providers, you have your content delivery networks, but also naming and addressing management. So what does this mean for the internet that we know and love? One of the characteristics, so the main characteristics of the internet is that it has a decentralized architecture, meaning that there is no single in command. There is nobody in command of the internet. This means that as long as you use the protocols to connect to the internet, and you can use them for free, it doesn't matter what kind of network you are, it doesn't matter what kind of device you're using, you can connect to the internet and you can use it for whatever you need to use it for. You don't need to ask for permission from anyone. And that is what distinguishes the internet from other modes of communication, of mass communication. This has been very important for enabling innovation. So all of these companies, the big companies that we know, they became very, very valuable because they were able to use that to their advantage, to use those qualities to their advantage. And ideally, what it should do is it should also allow other companies in the future to do the same. But maybe it may not be that possible anymore because of what is happening now. Another benefit of having a decentralized structure is that it's a very resilient architecture, meaning that because there is no single entity or just a few entities that control it, you don't have single points of failure. But maybe that's not that true anymore. Okay, so I guess the next question is, we are seeing consolidation happen, but is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I think that right now, everyone who has this in their minds, whether you're a government or you're a regulator or you're a company or you're a startup or you're an ordinary user, it's a tricky question because right now it's both good and bad. One example of this is in open standards. So if you have an open standard, usually to adopt an open standard takes some time because maybe organizations don't want to invest in new hardware, they don't want to train people, they don't want to invest in expertise, they don't want to change their network operations. But big companies, they can accelerate, they can speed up the adoption of standards. They can also nudge other organizations to adopt it. One example is HTTPS. So HTTPS, Google, when you go to a website that is not encrypted, it's going to give you a warning that that website is not secure. So this means that if you're a website, if you want your customers to access your website, you are going to use HTTPS. Another example is IPv6. So Apple, if you want to make your app available in Apple Store, they call it App Store, iOS App Store, I think. You have to be IPv6 compliant. So that's how so in a way, that's good, no? when you talk about cloud computing, so whether you're offering platform as a service or software as a service or infrastructure as a service, basically what cloud computing does is it provides you with your computing needs, whether it's processing or database management, storage, etc. So this is good. There are so I think I mentioned earlier that Amazon Web Services dominates cloud provision. There's a bunch of other names in there. You have Microsoft, you have Google, you have IBM, Alibaba, also very much invested in the cloud space. So only a very, very concentrated market, which can be bad, but it also helps. It's concentrated because a big part of that is because it takes a lot of investment to be able to go into that space. This is good from the innovation part because if you're a small business, you don't have to invest you have computing requirements. You don't have to buy all of that. You don't have to hire the expertise. You can just pay Amazon for the service and they will provide it to you. So you don't have a lot of overhead. You can scale your business because you can use your money to conduct, to invest in other things and minimize your cost with the computing requirements. Another, if we go to the content layer, you have Facebook. So if you're a bag designer, so if you're designing bags and you want to sell your bags, you may not even need to set up a store or maybe even your own website. You can log into Facebook and set up a page and you can start selling your bags there. That easy. But it's also bad. So there's still a bad thing because it can create dependencies and it can create lock-in. One example is APIs. So Uber relies on, I think still relies on Google Maps to provide its services. What if one day Google decides that it no longer wants to make Google Maps available to Uber? Uber knows this. So Uber has invested in its own mapping service. But not all businesses are Uber. So not all businesses are that big. What if you're just a startup? So the danger is not only businesses, but also us users. Like if I go online on a normal day, I can count with one hand the companies that I use to do everything online. And when we talk about like doing everything online, governments have the same kind of, there's a same trend with governments. Recently, the Federal Trade Commission in the US was criticized for just using Amazon, only Amazon, to migrate its data to the cloud. One of Google's ambitions is to provide public services on behalf of governments. So imagine if you have these companies taking charge of public services, welfare services, whatever you do online, like a WeChat environment, so to speak. What if they become so big that and so essential that it's in our interest to keep them surviving. So they're so big and we need them so much that we need to make sure that they survive. It's going to be the new banking and landscape where we have to bail them out if they fail. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and I'm going to turn to our contributors to also share their thoughts about how they see this happening in their locality, in Taiwan and in Japan, and how it's affecting our environment, especially in Asia Pacific. So Asia Pacific is becoming a big market, but also becoming a home to companies that are getting bigger and bigger. So first, I'd like to turn to Akinori-san to provide us with some perspectives on how this is happening in Japan, so we can get an outside perspective.
Thank you very much. My name is Akinori Maemura of JPNIC, Japan Network Information Center. Could you to be back in some slides? No. Oh, that's right. Then, yes, the consolidation, I actually have a mixed feeling with that. So, for me, internet is actually designed for the competition. What I mean here is, for example, the standardization of the internet is not really the pure standardization, because the so-called de jure standardization is pure standardization in some meaning. That is to determine the one single standard to be shared by everyone. That's really compelling standardization. But in case of the internet, which is done in IETF, is not that hard. We can employ multiple standards out of the draft standards. So that allows. Then there's actually the sense, in the sense, the final choice is left to the consumer or the user of the technology. So it is the internet. So then internet architecture allows the permissionless innovation, which means that if you do some innovation, there is no need of the permission. For example, I'm more than sure that you are already using the YouTube, and then it is said that no single lawyer says YouTube is completely legal. Maybe illegal, that means, but YouTube can be get onto the market before they are 100% sure they are legal. So that's the sense of the permissionless innovation. So it is a free, it is a new world. Everyone can get into the business. Then they can compete with each other to win or lose the competition, to seize the market. Then so such kind of the free market will be what economics says is that kind of the free market competition will conclude in oligology. The two or three major players only competing each other, and the other smaller player just gone out of the market. So in that term, the consolidation is the way we are on. That's theory, I think, and that's my first point of mind is that. Then another point, then it is good for us or not. That's the last slide says that the big question. Are we happy with that? That's another question. So I think the GAFA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, who else? Alibaba is already too big. For example, I have a little idea in the Taiwan case, but in Japan, there is no one who can even compete with Google, Amazon, Facebook. Yeah, we had the fantastic social network service whose name was Mixi, but it's gone. Once upon a time, that's 5 years ago, for example, I was using the Mixi for my Japanese friend, and I was using the Facebook for the international friend. That's really the fantastic distinguishing. But these days, Mixi is already over. Then the Facebook is only the SNS, effectively. So I am still enjoying using only the Facebook for the Japanese and the international friends. But still, I have some uncomfort for this. Then you know, what economics says is that, you know, competition will conclude in two or three some competition. But in case of the internet, we have the network effect. The network effect means that if once getting the more and more subscriber or the people who get into the network, you know, the benefit by the network is rapidly, you know, exponentially grow to be big. In that case, maybe that competition can easily result in over competition, and then maybe the really strong player only win and the other lost. Then maybe that's the current situation of the consolidation is like that. So in case of the domestic economy, the domestic economy can be regulated by the authority. Then my big question is how to deal with the global competition and the global monopoly can be addressed. So if we at the global internet is not really comfortable with the global monopoly, then we may have some way to address that. But I have no idea how to deal with that. So that would be for you and for IGF, and maybe we can create something for our own comfortable future. Thank you very much.
Would anyone like to have any comments? Do you have any comments at this point, or questions, or a random comment that you would like to have? The one comment I have is, Bakinori-san, I like the point that you made about global competition, because when we talk about internet governance, we know that the governance for the decisions to govern the internet is actually now happening not only and being discussed not only in venues like IGF, but also in closed venues. You have negotiations, bilateral negotiations, or negotiations between Facebook and France, for example, that do not have a lot of stakeholders in the room. When it comes to digital taxation, some people want to bring it to the World Trade Organization. So it also means maybe do we want these organizations to be making decisions relating to the internet, but these organizations are known to be not very multi-stakeholder. All right. I now would like to turn to Koei to make his remarks.
Yeah. Let me make some of the, actually I'm thinking about it for a long time. I was involved in the internet actually from the 1990. So for a long time, almost 29 years already. So I think that first of all, we have to understand a couple of the facts. The internet market is really very different to the legacy we have in the traditional. In traditional, for example, we say there is a biggest retailer store. You can see the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. And number 1, number 2 may be the revenue size, maybe 20% smaller or 15% smaller. For example, like in the early day, the retailer in US, the biggest one is Walmart, Kmart, Kroger, something like that. But internet create a very different kind of a mechanism. It's a mechanism that happen right now. And that is not today. Actually, since internet come out, we already experienced about that. Let me take you to thinking about one thing. When you are talking about the internet, the map. I think easily for you say Google Map. If I'm asking you another question, can you name second largest map, not Google Map? Who is the second one?
places that also so I don't know anymore.
And then let me ask one more question. Say, we know the social media, the biggest one is Facebook. Who is the second largest one? It's kind of interesting, right? If you are talking about the email, the Gmail is the biggest one. Who is the second one? You find it, internet create a very funny kind of the schema. It's you can see the number one, but you don't know who is the second one. Actually, second one is far, far away. For example, in the map, the Google map, they even don't see who is the second one. He turned the back, nobody there, you know. And, come on. How many people use it? Simple, okay. So the funny thing here, if we say the Google Map is the biggest one in the world, and I think if you are going to do the survey to figure out how many people using the map with, you know, the Google Map and the whatever Apple Map or whatever map, you find that actually this is very far away, you know, and even can ignore that. Now the question you are asking, like here, the consideration. Now, is a Google Map is a monopoly? Let me ask a question. Do you think the Google Map is dominant in the map business? Yes or no? Here, when I ask you domination, have two different definitions. One is usage, another one the legal. Domination, monopoly is different thing, right? He can domination, doesn't mean he's a monopoly. Because if you try to using the traditional monopoly law apply to the Google Map, apply to Facebook, doesn't work. Because he didn't use his domination to block in the new innovation coming to the market. Right? You're a lawyer, you know that. So this is a very new dimension we are facing in the internet age. We see the domination one, but the traditional monopoly law we can apply on that. Doesn't work. So you have to be thinking about, if we want to use in the monopoly to apply on that domination company, you have to modify the new law. And I know in US, in Europe, there is a law professor working on that one. Okay. That is one thing. First, we understand the internet fact. The second one I like to show you this chart is an interesting one. Is if you go to the history, if you go back to the history, every 20 years, actually, most of the company disappear. You look at that on the 1998, the top 20 of the internet company over there. How many of them is still alive? For example, in the early day, the number one is AOL. Where's AOL now? Who cares? You don't care, right? It's bought out by, you know, the CNN, and then CNN is bought out by AT&S. Verizon, yeah. But who cares the Verizon in the internet? Who cares? You know. The same thing in 1998, the second biggest one is Yahoo. Who cares about Yahoo now? Yahoo almost bankrupt, you know. It's bought out. But I mean, it's every 20 years, actually the paradigm shift keep moving. Even forget about the internet company. If you go back to the history, the biggest corporation, 20 years, we have the 20 biggest company today. If you look at the 20 years ago, none of them exist. Okay. You know, Facebook, when did the Facebook start to on the market? 2004. Before 2004, who know the Facebook? Nobody. Do you know when the Google coming out? Google coming out is about 1997 or 1978, something like that. It's a tiny company, nobody care, you know. So first of all, when you are talking about consolidation, yeah, it is because when the company from the start innovation and began to expand their business, and one day they get very huge, tremendously big. Okay, there is one situation. There's a quite generally of the marketing development or the market development, it will have that kind of result. Let me show you the second slide. You can see much interesting one. The second one is funny one. This is the top 20 of the internet company based on the market value. The top 20. If you look at this slide, it's funny. Yeah, this one. Yeah, this one. I show this one in the IGF. I show this one in the European Commissioning. I tell them, say, take a look. Those are 20 companies. How many of the company, is there any company here in Europe? The 20 companies. Well, I can name it. Don't care. You just put up. Don't care. I can, yeah. Basically, you can see it's a Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Apple, something like that. In here, actually, the top 20 companies only distribute in 2 countries, US and China. And what's that mean? Try to think about it. US, of course, there's a historical because the internet started from the US and it goes bigger. But why the China is they have so many companies in the top 20 of the internet company based on the market value, about 4 or 5. Jingdong, Alibaba, Tencent, Baidu. These 2 kind of scenario happen in the internet environment. Is a funny thing is the American company is based on the global expansion, but those are China company. They are big because they dominate in China market. They are small outside of China market. For example, Alibaba. Have anybody take a look about the revenue income of Alibaba outside of the US, outside of the China? Small, very small. And what's that mean? What is the, you know, what is a story telling us? How you can be the top 20 biggest company in the world. One is in the US environment. And US environment is based on, like you are talking about, competition. But in China, do you have a competition? No. Alibaba and the Jingdong and the Baidu can be very big because they don't allow the Google go in. Alibaba can be big because they don't allow the Amazon go in. So what is the story telling us? So back to your question, the consolidation. I think this is a very general business practice. Any innovation come out, it takes years to grow big, and somehow you call this the domination. Okay, and I don't know there's a monopoly or not, but it's domination. But the chart tells us It can be happen in a democratic freedom country, but even in China, well, maybe you can call it a closed country or dictatorship or whatever, they still can develop in a huge company. But because their population is big enough, 1.5 billion. But the same situation, can we expect that in India? I don't know. Because India eventually will be the most population in the world. Everybody knows that in the next 5 years, the Indian population is more than China. They are on the trend already. So, but if you look at that one, it's also funny thing is, yeah, domination is there. I actually share you another information I didn't put over here. If you know there is a website called Alexa, it's an Amazon Alexa. Amazon Alexa actually provide you the information. You can look every country, the top 500 internet company. Okay. If you forget about the 500, you just take the top 10. It's really surprising. In the whole world, except China. Those are the top 10, you can see Google, Facebook, Amazon, YouTube. But those companies doesn't happen in China. China, the top 10, you cannot see Google, you cannot see Facebook, you cannot see Amazon, you cannot see Apple. No, not there. So it really challenges us one thing. First of all, is that our domination is equal to monopoly? Or how we can apply the monopoly to the domination? This is the first question we have to ask ourselves. The second question is, in a free world, outside of the dictatorship, the China, Russia, basically, I think we always say, well, domination, monopoly might be not evil, but not, he said, based on your word, is bad. Okay. But what about those companies in China? Is bad or good? I don't know. So, but domination and the monopoly is not only in the business market. In every society, you always have some unit or institution is monopoly. Let me take one example. Government is monopoly, right? Do you have two company government in your country? Do you have two police force in Japan? No. See, the police is monopoly. Government is a monopoly. We do have a monopoly. The only problem is how we can control the monopoly not doing bad thing. I change your question. Say, if we agree he is a monopoly, but he still can do the good to the public interest, how we can manage them, do a good thing, not do a bad thing. If they are do a bad thing or against the public interest, then how we can manage them? I think that might be another angle. I just try to make a different, voice to let you thinking about it and other things. Thank you.
I will leave it to Mr. Vic to answer that. That's what he's here for. But one of the interesting points that you mentioned, Kuo-wei, was China's approach.
Yeah, it's on. It's on.
Okay. My voice is just like this. So China has taken a different approach, as Kuo-wei mentioned. And India wants to take the same approach. But protectionism, of course, is an option. But if you have a big market, so both China and India, maybe they can afford that. Maybe they can afford to shut outsiders off because they can cultivate it within their own market. What about countries that are smaller? What are our options, for example? If you're no longer living in an environment where that was, the Silicon Valley environment where everything was a free-for-all. The second point that I noticed was the other slide that you showed, Kuowei. In the 2018 one, actually had traditional players in it. So these tech giants are not the Googles and the Facebooks. They are CBS, Disney. They are the traditional companies that are making a comeback. And of course, among other things, these companies do not necessarily have the values that we know of the internet. Disney is one of the biggest proponents of intellectual property, which has, for some people in some sectors, has some conflict with the internet as we envision it. So I'm going to turn to Mr. Vic to make his remarks to address Kuowei's questions, but also to make his own observations about how it's happening in Taiwan.
Thank you, Noel, and Director Wu, and Akinori-san, and Professor Wei, and Ruofan. I'm Vic from Lee & Lee, and as you know, I am a lawyer, and the lawyer is very conservative, so forgive me, I prepared the lines because since Facebook, Google, and Apple are all our friends clients, so I'm afraid I'm maybe say something too much, disclose their secret. Okay. We live in okay, I will disclose some if anything. We live in a digital era, so digital technology also changed our life rapidly. So we can find that digital companies become bigger and bigger through the vertical or horizontal integrations. But we must keep in mind that this kind of internet giants, they don't only provide their original service, they also migrate to other kind of service scope. So as you can see, like Facebook, not only serve as a social media platform, it also issuing their own cryptocurrency in this year. And also like Line, the Taiwan most successful messenger app, they also apply for their internet bank license. We hope it can successfully obtain the license. So as a result, internet giants like Apple, Google, Facebook, they constantly renew their business model and hence trigger concerns about monopolize the market or abuse their market power. So in recent years, many countries have found this kind of issue and start to analyze their business model and try to investigate any potential legal issue that may be involved. So I would like to share some experience or develop in Taiwan. It's a pity that we don't have Taiwan Fair Trade Commissioner come to this event here, because following the footsteps of the other competition authority like EU or South Korea and Japan, those countries began to investigate those kind of digital giants such as Google, Facebook in 2017. Our Taiwan Fair Trade Commission, FTC, also established a digital economic research group whose main task is to identify any potential competition law issue that may be involved by this kind of internet giants. As a digital economic covers a wide range of fields, including the AI, big data, e-commerce, platform economy, sharing economy, blockchain, and so on. The FTC, Taiwan FTC, his first priority is on platform economy and big data, and its focus now is to clarify whether these internet giants engage any antitrust acts. But the FTC also admit at this stage, they are just monitor the relevant practical developments rather than targeting and investigating any specific company activities. The emerging digital economy changes market composition and business model. So that leading another big challenge for the FTC to enforce competition laws, just like Director Wu said and other and economists mentioned. For instance, identifying the digital market may be the first difficult issue for the FTC to handle. In the past, market definition is usually fairly straightforward. However, when it comes to the digital industry, it gets more complicated. Take an example from Google. In the service provided by Google, users look for search results, while the advertisers seek users' attention. Hence, the more users Google attracts, the more profit Google can earn from the advertisers. While Google provides free service to users in one side market, it also obtains profits from the other side market, from the advertisers. So this case can explain the complexity in defining a market when the regulator start to investigate any potential unfair activity by this kind of internet giants. So also in the past, we can identify the market easily by comparing the change of the product's price and the change of the demands. But now, as the user only use the internet service for free, there is no comparable price in some digital markets. So the market, therefore, is hard to be identified or be defined. However, based on the press release from the FTC, we know the FTC tentatively concludes the conclusion that although Facebook, Line, and Google, they all belong to the digital industry, but their main business are different, which are social media, instant messages, and search engine, respectively. Therefore, the FTC doesn't think they are in the same market. However, like I said, while this kind of internet giant, they are expanding their service model or their service scope, we never know what the answer will be in the future. Another issue I want to put forward is about the big data and the competition order. It is often the case that the digital economy industry utilizes big data to analyze economic activities in order to save cost and to provide customized choice for customers. However, the nature of big data, digital economic intensifies the phenomena of the big ones get bigger. Taking Google and Facebook for instance, they provide service while collecting our data, and that might be relevant to your preference. When this kind of digital giants grants users big data, it is easier for them to get a head start on business over other competitors. Consequently, some scholars in Taiwan or in other jurisdictions have expressed their view that considering data collected through the platform service play critical roles in digital industry market. Whether it constitutes an abusive market is arguable if this joint platform refuse or reject to share the data to other competitors. But from the other angle, if we take a look from the digital giant's view, it is also arguable to request them to share the data with other competitors because they obtain this kind of data by their hard work and even the free service they provide. With regard to this big data issue, we understand that other competition authorities are investigating whether Google abused its dominance in the advertising market, and the EU Commission even imposed a huge amount of penalty on Google for its bundling searching service with its Android system. Okay, I'll turn another issue that may be relevant to this kind of internet consolidation. Apart from the angle of abuse of dominance, the other issue, asymmetric regulation, is another that we need to be aware of. Asymmetric regulation means the current regulation favors the new entrants and burdens the incumbent because the new service is not regulated now. Like the OTT service. In the morning session, we know the Netflix representative have come to have a talk. OTT service provider like Netflix are rising quickly now, but currently they are not regulated by any law in Taiwan. But compared to the OTT, our traditional service provider like cable TV or other satellite channel program providers, they are heavily regulated by the current laws. So compared to the incumbents, the OTT service provider have more incentive and more room to provide flexible service to Taiwan and earn the money. But it is hard for us to imagine that we should require the OTT service provider also be subject to kind of traditional laws. So maybe the issue here is how do we regulate the current law that impose so heavily burden to our incumbents. So to regulate or not to regulate, that is always a question here. So I just put some idea for everybody to think about, like the big issue and market definition, and also the asymmetric regulations. And I think I just stop my talk here, and maybe we can have discuss more later.
I'd like to make a comment about that one. First of all, when you are talking about a cable TV or something like that, I think you're a lawyer, you know that in Taiwan, cable TV, their profit margin is so high. Their movie provide is so bad. We know that the same movie you can appeal 300 times in 1 year. The same movie, okay? And that is reason because you didn't provide. Don't forget that the cable TV in the past almost 10, 15 years in Taiwan, they are monopoly. Because we don't have a choice. In my city, there is only one cable company available. There's no second one I can choose. Their profit margin is so good, their service is so bad. So they create a market for the newcomer. So what? Why they can complain? They create their own problem to invite the newcomer to take out their market. I don't want to talk about the Zhonghua telco. The telco is also the similar situation. If you go back to in the last 20 years, even in every country, almost all the telco is a high margin. right? Easily 20%, 30% profit. And so you create a market. Say, here is a 30% of the profit. Come, if some new innovation and he can jump in this market and they only take 15%, they take it out. So this is kind of interesting that actually that one guy sit over there called Kenny Huang. He's a PhD thesis is writing in the business model. He shared me with those of the journal paper. One of that is talking about the innovation and business model. I still remember that paper is written by Harvard MBA school. He said the business model innovation actually coming out with us. The need is not be filled. That is the market. There is a need, but not be filled. So I actually quite open for that. I don't like to say, the cable, they have a difficulty because Netflix, they don't have regulations, so they take our market. Come on, when they are monopoly, they didn't provide a good service ever. Right? That's the issue. And another issue is kind of interesting. Everyone always like to say, the big company take over my market, and we are the small country, we just, say small size, for example, Sri Lanka, And even Taiwan, in the morning I said that. Even the Taiwan, this country, our market share in the global market only 1 to 1.5% of the global market. With this kind of market size, and you are claim, that is, I always argue with some of the economists in Taiwan. They always say, we need to have our local industry. Local industry. For example, local one. They have a Google. Can we have a Taiwanese Google? Your market just 1%, 1.5%. And if you want to, everyone, you have a duplicate one. For example, they have a Tesla, then we want to have something similar. And what about the other people can complain? TSMC took over the 45% or 50% of the global market. All the semiconductor is manufactured in Taiwan. Do you think this is reasonable? Or we say, here we lose the market to that guy. And here we take advantage, so, it's okay. Monopoly is fine. That doesn't make any sense to me. And also, most of the people understand that. Well, at least in Taiwan. I don't know in Japan or not. In Taiwan, most of Western company, American company, Japanese company, or European company, they pay, the salary pay is much better than local company. And now you tell me I need to support the local industry. They don't pay me good. Why I need to work? Why I need to fight for them? Doesn't make sense, right? I don't know in the Japan, is a Google pay better than local Japanese company?
Much better than Japanese company.
See? So we are saying we want to fight our local industry. We want the company in Taiwanese entrepreneur. But he don't pay good. And what we try to fight is try to make those local rich men getting richer. And we still cannot get a good pay. I think your country too, right? In most of Asia, it's about the same. the better pay always coming from the global company. You know, it's not a local company. Is that you work lazier? No, you work for the local company, you work like a, you know, it's crazy, right? It's even harder than the foreign company. So I think that is a very interesting question. It's very difficult to when you're talking about consolidation, about the monopoly, you know, so I changed my mind. Usually I think about monopoly is no good. But now I don't believe it. I basically think about you need to see the whole thing in the global pictures. If this company is a local company, they do good job, they could provide a good pay, then good, there is a public interest. But when we put a regulation to protect the local company, and they didn't provide a good service, they don't pay the good salary to employee, why I need to fight for them? Doesn't make sense. And of course, I didn't mean the global company definitely is good. So that's I mean in the beginning, I say, monopoly, if they are bad, evil, then we need to do something to management it. That I agree. But so I think we should not take a case just from the consolidation, say, oh, this is a monopoly, this is a domination, and then we can judge. It's much complex. The whole thing is much complex.
Would anyone else? I can raise hand.
I'd like to make a quick point to Mr. Chen. I was wondering if you check with the Trade Commission about the antitrust situation, and then hearing your comment, I was wondering, the Google and Facebook are dominating the certain market of the search engine and the SNS, but they are dominating that service to the end user, but not monetary base. In that case, that's the monopoly station is recognized, or not a totally different thing.
First of all, I totally agree the Go's comments. And reply to Akinori-san. I think the best concept in Taiwan Fair Trade Act, that is the Antitrust Act, the best principles and the concepts still apply to the internet giants. So they can be monopolized, but they cannot abuse their market power. So the problem here is how do the FTC in Taiwan to enforce the competition law to this kind of internet giants? Because, like I said, the first of all, you need to identify the scope of market, and it is probably a hard issue because it is very complex for them to provide so much kind of service now. But still, we can learn from the FTC or other jurisdictions, anti-competition agency. In Google case, they indeed abuse their market power because they refuse, they bundle their kind of searching result. They bundle their searching engine to other kind of service, and they also force the counterparty to enter into some unfavorable agreement. So, like the counterparty cannot or is not allowed to enter into another advertising agency agreement with others. So this kind of evidence, even in the traditional competition law, they are already violated the FTA. And back to the Go's comments, I also agree. In Taiwan, market share, we certainly cannot create another local Facebook or another Google. So we know in the OTT area that the Ministry of Culture, 文化部, they want to form a national team to force against like foreign OTT operator like Netflix or not.
Why don't we try to judge the
TSMC?
It's monopoly.
So it is hard for us to punish this kind of internet giant just because they are big, or we want to force our local entities. But what we can do is to re-regulate the unnecessary regulation to let our local entities to have chance or have incentive to fair competition with others. And also we can consider to like other jurisdiction they are now considering for this kind of internet giants, because their economic power is so grateful and may hence impacted the local entities' the growth. So digital taxation may be another issue that we can think about. Like France, they already impose a digital tax to Facebook. But jealous. Because they are US-based company. But I think that's one thing in Taiwan is very correct, that Taiwan's government always looking other jurisdiction than react. So we don't need to be the first one to punish other jurisdiction, to punish other internet giants. We can take a look at other jurisdictions and make some response later.
Like Japan, huh? We should ask a comment from Kenny Huang. You cannot be silent there.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Kenny Huang. And first of all, I just jumped into this section, so I don't have previous insight about what you discussed. But basically, I agree with all your discussion. We concentrate on internet consolidation, but that kind of consolidation is different compared to the traditional business, because the concentration ratio for internet startup basically is much, much higher than traditional business. For example, you mentioned they only have first-tier company. We don't have second-tier company in the internet. But for traditional business, it's easy to find the second-tier business, third-tier business. So the concentration ratio is quite different. The second different kind compared to traditional business is internet is so compelling. It's almost influence to every angle of our life. For example, you're using Google for everything, and you use Facebook for day-to-day. Even when you commute, when you walk in, when you go back to home, you're using all kind of application. So it's significant change our life. So when we're talking about monopoly, I think the key point is not monopoly. No one saying monopoly is bad thing. The key point is whether you abuse your market power. And Jianwei just mentioned, basically, there are many evidence, some company, they do abuse their market power. And actually, I couldn't figure out why they don't want to abuse their market power, because that's the way of business. So basically, I don't try to comment anything in the business world, because there are regulation, there are lawsuit, there are a lot of policy try to justify that kind of behavior. But I'll go back to the infrastructure layer, for example, like a protocol layer. We're just talking about application. We just leave application open to the public sector, for example, like a government or lawyer. They try to judge whether it is, they are antitrust or not. And we back to the protocol layer. Basically, this kind of big company, they even try to influence the protocol. For example, like a DOH, DNS over HTTPS. Basically, also invented by the big guy, because they are trying to influence our traffic behavior. And also, for example, like a QUIC. the quick UDP internet protocol basically try to change the way traditional internet TCP/IP behavior, and that also invented by the big company. And very soon we will realize the big company not only happy to live in with the commercial world, they are trying to manipulate the cyberspace as well, because they are penetrate to the protocol design, protocol architecture. And so, back to the original question, whether monopoly is good or not. Basically, we don't trust anyone who has a superpower, because no one should have that kind of superpower. So, if anything we can do from public space, public cyberspace, we should break down to treat everyone as individual with the same power when they try to make a voice in the internet. That's my comment. I think ISOC did a lot.
Yeah, maybe you would say the ISOC is another part of the monopoly.
So thank you very much, Mr. Wang. It's interesting that you mentioned DNS over HTTP, because there's also some people who think that, yes, it has benefits, especially for security. But then some countries are saying, let's just ban that. Let's just not allow organizations to use that, also for security purposes, national security purposes. So I wonder, is there a way for us to have our cake and eat it too? Because it seems like it's one or the other. So are there any other comments in the room? Do you want to make any comments? What I wanted, no, yeah, question, maybe question. Do you want to ask? Or maybe, oh no, I promise that I will not ambush anyone today. But, okay, so show of hands. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to ask something. So I've mentioned. Yes.
Help you translate. Don't worry about it. Go ahead. You can ask, then you can ask first. Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, people are being ambushed.
Okay. Sorry, I mean, I did not join, in the beginning. So I think I agree that, monopoly, actually we see a lot of monopoly, in the history. But I also totally agree with Kenny that, this kind of monopoly is a little different. Compared to, maybe we talk about 10 years ago, it's a Microsoft, right? But Microsoft, actually, they just sell you,
Microsoft is coming back.
Yeah, it's another cloud. It's a cloud. Yes, but 10 years ago it's different, the scale and also how they do it. But I think first thing is, monopoly. Actually, monopoly have some advantages, right? Just like what you said, they can have more resources. Like this morning, we're talking about a lot of compliance. If small company, they cannot do it at all. Yeah, and they cannot provide, and they cannot have more innovation. But of course, monopoly also have a lot of bad things, and they have more intention to, to abuse, their power, their market position, to do more. So for Taiwan, I think I always have some questions. Yeah, when we're talking about the competition law, and because competition law usually just economists and also lawyers, talking about competition law. But it should not just for me. It should not just we just make sure the fair competition in the market. Actually, we should think about what is the what it will impact Taiwan. Like maybe just like Kenny just said, when the internet company they have a lot of power. When they designing the more basic infrastructure, so how can others, even a stop or newcomers, how they flourish, in the system. So it's what we should look at, and how to be more strategic, thinking about how to use competition law and how to respond to this kind of monopoly power, and to to help or just to provide a healthy environment for the later, I mean, the application operators and also others' new business model. So I think usually is what I said. But I think it's really different for every country. Maybe like in Taiwan, maybe we want to have a more, some industry, but in Europe, maybe it's different.
Okay, put my head as a IT participant point of view. And basically that was probably 10 or, sorry, even longer, 15 years ago. IETF already foresee the issue, already foresee the search market will be dominated by very few operators. So IETF they proposed a protocol called IRNSS. If I remember correctly, it's an Internet Research on a Searchable Name Service. That means all the search will be broken down into 2 tiers. The first tier provided by a trust entity. When you try to search something, for example, like Ministry of Education, so when you find a keyword with a local identifier, they will forward your query to local authorized registry. They will try to resolve whether this name is correct or incorrect. So if they have found a resolution, they will respond to you. That means any entity who responds for Ministry of Education, they will respond for all the name resolution regarding to Ministry of Education. And if they couldn't find the result, then back to the second tier. Second tier is commercial search. Then second tier can go to, for example, like a Google, go to Yahoo, or go to the other things. So the proposal basically is so wonderful because they try to partition people looking for information based on 2 factors. One factor, the information provided by trustworthy entity, and that's respected by the public. And the second tier is commercial search. So instead of go everything to commercial, basically there's a firewall to stop it and to see. We're still looking for information that's trustworthy, that's authentic, and credited by the public sector or even trust entity. But unfortunately, that proposal didn't go through because it's so much effort to make it happen. But I think it's a good time to restart over that kind of proposal because it's a good time to break down application service into infrastructure application and commercial application. Okay, thank you. That's my comment.
Hello, everyone. I'm William. Actually, I have another kind of way to think about monopoly. Is that we should also consider the political influence on the monopoly on any enterprise, especially private enterprises. We can take this recent Huawei incident as a reference. If a government, like a U.S. government, was trying to declare a kind of trade war with another country, it also influences its enterprise there. So what if someday, because we all welcome monopoly companies because they provide us good service, but someday, if somehow we are blocked from Facebook, from Line, from whatever, or from Google, what Taiwanese people can use? Are we going to use Baidu or Tencent? I don't trust. No, but email, email system is provided also by, by certain companies. And yeah, mail server, yes, but what system we can use? Microsoft? Are they going, if they someday they start to provide Microsoft to Taiwan or to any country, what if we, that's a national security issue. So I think we still need to consider, it's not breaking the monopoly, just we need to, on a political standard or a government point of view, must have some backup plan for the people in the country. Thank you.
Before too late, I'd like to make another point. Now the consolidation, yes, that's your point is really great. That's the political game may be influenced to that kind of the consolidation situation. And then another point I should raise is I found that the mail system and the DNS system appear in the discussion, and these days in Japan we have the situation, and then I suspect you share the situation is the operation of the mail server or operation of the DNS server is too difficult for the newbies and the smaller player. Only biggest player can handle the mail service and the DNS service properly. That's a huge problem, and then that is the reason why the smaller player need to rely on the bigger players' service outsourced. Then it's tremendous problem because smaller player. For example, in Japan we have the 400. The number of the ISPs can count up to the 400. And then biggest player with whom we can expect the proper level of the operation quality is maybe handful. Other 395 players just struggling. Then there is another problem. I'd like to need this put the spotlight on that.
When this gentleman mentioned about we blocked by Facebook, it brings me want to share another interesting experience. Several months ago, I don't know whether you have this kind of experience. In Taiwan, it's a famous messenger app company. You want to change his privacy policy, and I don't say the name of the company. Okay. Because in the past, you don't need to give your consent before you use their service. But now they want you to give your consent they provide advertisement to you before you can use their service. If you don't consent, then you cannot use their service. After this kind of change of the privacy policy, this company got a lot of complaints, even complaint to the city government. Then in the settlement meeting, the consumers claims, I don't want to give my consent for you to broadcast your advertisement, but I want to still use your service because it's my right to use your service. All my friends' contact is on this service. If I can use your messenger service, then I can contact with my friends. So I ask you to recover to the original privacy policy. So that brings me another thought. If this kind of internet joint, their service is a must for us, and we can ask them to provide the service, although they want to add another requirement for them, for us to obey. Whether or not we have the right to use their service, and ask them not to infringe our privacy. It is an issue that is open to others to think.
All right. So we have 5 minutes left, I believe. And are there any other last questions? Any other? Oh, yes. Of course, please.
Just comment to 简律师 comments. Yeah, actually, there's maybe I just share some information. So that's why there's some development. I mean, to treat some of the service of internet company as a critical infrastructure. So they have specific obligation, just like what we see, you know, the water, electricity, and telecoms. So that, I mean, just to use, I mean, this kind of obligation. But I don't see a lot of discussion in Taiwan yet. But it seems that, I mean, the internationally, I mean, governments start to identify which service should be just like you know, the infrastructure, just like you know, other which we really need. But I think it's still, I mean, the problem. What we have now is always, I mean, the foreign companies. We don't have the domestic. But I think we are not the only one who have this problem, and Europe have this problem, and so only the U.S.
Let me ask you a simple question. You like the Chinese model? There is no global companies out of China company. You like the No, I mean, that is a question.
Yeah, I think it's the reality. I think it's first that it's not only like a, you know, China model and non-China model. We say U.S. and the Europe model. We actually have something between. But I think the reality is first. I mean, we don't. I mean, it's not possible for Taiwan or even EU to have another like a surge. You know, because they I mean, establish such company, consume so huge resources. So it's not possible. So I think it always, I mean, it will be a problem for not only Taiwan, but for most of the countries, I mean, globally. So, but other than that, what we can do, I mean, for the next generation of new business model, new technology, what we can do? I think it's maybe it's the time. I mean, Taiwan also need to think about, because we cannot change the past. We cannot change the history. We have already missed. I think it's maybe we don't miss because we don't have resources to have this kind of huge company. Yeah, so maybe we don't miss, but what we can do, I mean, for the next, I mean, generation, I think is the other issue.
Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes. Are we going to go past the time? But I was going to ask the speakers for their takeaways, but I didn't want to interrupt the conversation. I hope you found it useful. Also, to add to what has already been said, there are responses out there. One example that I can think of is the Solid project by Tim Berners-Lee. I'm not sure if it will take off. But essentially, it's a platform where you have like a decentralized approach to data, taking into account that a lot of these big monopolies, so to speak, thrive through data control. So what Tim Berners-Lee wants to do is to decentralize that data and to give users control of the data. Let's see how that will pan out. But overall, I mean, personally, I still have faith on the internet. Otherwise, I would quit my job. Yeah. So the general purpose internet is still there. It hasn't gone away. So I think there are still a lot of possibilities, and this is not the end of the road. But we at the Internet Society we're continuing our research on this. And if you are interested, then I'm happy to provide the resources that we have on this. And also for me, I hope it's been useful for you as well. But from where we stand, I think discussions like these really advance the conversation because it puts it in the local context as to how countries and markets, small markets like Taiwan are experiencing it. So thank you very much for your attention. And I hope to see you around in the next day and a half. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you very much.